Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Danny, and I'm the Social Justice Coordinator at St. Anthony. And if you haven't heard, we're planning on taking a group to the 18th Annual Walk for Life West Coast, which is on January 21st to January 23rd, 2022 in San Francisco. So we got everything planned out. It's just a matter of will we go? We've been inviting you all to sign up to come and have this experience. It's $375 to go with a group of 15 people, and that includes travel to the airport, a direct flight, round trip to San Francisco and back, and then ground transportation in San Francisco. It doesn't include the food. You'll be on your own for that. So it's Friday, September 10th, as I record this right now, and our deadline to pay the fee and sign up is September 15th. So you have 5 more days to sign up. And I have the privilege and opportunity to interview Eva Muntean, who is the founder of the Walk for Life in San Francisco. Just finished recording it right now, actually. And I recorded it for my podcast, Reclaiming Social Justice podcast that I have. And so you'll be able to listen to this interview in an audio format later once I finish editing it. But because the deadline is so soon, I wanted to share the video of our conversation. It's unedited, so no fancy bells and whistles, but I hope that by learning a little bit more about the walk and meeting the face behind the walk, you'll be encouraged to sign up. If you have any questions, please email me at drauda@sataggart.org. You can also call me at the parish office. I look forward to seeing you all on Sunday and enjoy this conversation.
All right, Eva. So one of the first things that I wanted to ask you about before we jump into the walk and the logistics and of all that, curious a little bit about your personal story. Who or what taught you about the importance of valuing human life?
Well, I didn't think too much about it growing up. I'm pretty old, so we didn't talk about that too much as I was growing up. But I think what really got me starting to think about it was when a acquaintance of mine got pregnant and was going to have a baby, and then she wanted to have an abortion. And I was so taken aback, and I said, I'd be happy to raise the baby. I'll pay for everything. I'll take care of it. You don't have to do anything. And she ended up having the abortion anyway. So that was kind of like an aha moment of like, wait a minute, there's a lot of these abortions that are not necessary, the women would have a way out, and it really shouldn't be legal to kill these children when there are so many opportunities out there for these children to survive and live and thrive. And then, of course, meeting Mother Teresa and working at her AIDS hospice. I know that sounds weird to say that working at the AIDS hospice, but it really made me see the value of life and that all life matters, even those who were, addicted or had AIDS and et cetera. I mean, it just all came together. And then I think the history, it kind of ties in with the history of the walk. I went out to Washington, D.C. to go to the March for Life, and a friend of mine and I did. And it was so powerful and so moving, the testimonies, the people, just the atmosphere, that it really brought home again how there's so much help for women, and abortion is so unnecessary. And then, like I mentioned, Mother Teresa, I don't know if you knew or how out there it is, but she came out many years ago saying that she will not turn down any child that's born and is not wanted. All people would have to do, she has houses in every country in the world. All you have to do is take the baby to one of her houses, and they will take it from there, and they'll take care of it, find an adopt the child out. And so that's another thing, there's just so many different ways a woman can choose to go outside of abortion. And I think another thing that really hit home for me was the argument that, oh, I could never give my child up for adoption. So I don't understand how that works. I mean, you would rather kill the child as opposed to letting it live with another family who wants it. It just didn't make any sense to me. So those are kind of different personal reasons of how I became involved. And then in terms of how the walk got started, back in 2004, Gavin Newsom, who was at that time the mayor of San Francisco, he's now our illustrious governor, but he was a mayor, and against the law, he started allowing same-sex marriages. And so we decided to have a marriage rally here in San Francisco. And within 3 weeks, we organized speakers, a place, speakers, permits, everything. And we had I think up to 2,000 people that came. And we were so empowered by that event that we started thinking, what else can we do here in San Francisco that needs so much to have our voices heard? And then we remembered my co-chair and I, Dolores, had been out at the DC March. So we thought, there's a lot of people on the West Coast that can't make it to the East Coast to go to the March for Life. It's just too far, too expensive, etc. So we thought we'd start a sister event. So we understood that the March for Life was a political event. They go Monday through Friday, they go to the legislature, they have politicians speak, they have classes and ways to get involved politically. So we thought, well, let's do a sister event where we're on a Saturday closest to Roe v. Wade. We are not political. We basically are all about abortion hurts women. That's our big motto. We're here to support women who find themselves in a crisis pregnancy. And so that's kind of how that all came about. The walk was kind of a child of the march, but not affiliated in any way with it. So now we have a really close working relationship with the March for Life, and we help each other and figure out speakers, etc. So so that's kind of the history of myself and how the walk together started.
Yeah.
So.
Did you grow up religious?
No, well, okay, now that's a loaded question. I was born in Hungary, communist Hungary. And back then you weren't allowed to speak about religion, because if you taught your child religion and the child said something in school, then you were in trouble. But I had an uncle who was a priest there in Hungary. So definitely had the religious background in terms of, and when we came out to America, we escaped, by the way, in the trunk of a car. But when we came out to America, we were going to mass on Sundays. I'm Catholic, and of course we would do that. But then within a few years, we all kind of, for no particular reason, we just kind of fell away. We just all stopped going to mass. We all stopped, And so it wasn't until many years later, in 1986, that my mother, my sister, and I, all three at the same time, had a major reversion to our faith. I mean, just like overnight. And we went back to confession and daily communion and rosary and all of the, everything like that. So yes, now I'm religious, but I really wasn't raised religious, because when I had my reversion, I knew nothing about the faith. I even remember talking to my sister on the phone. She called and she said, "Eve, did you know that the rosary has mysteries?" So,
At what point in this faith journey of yours were you at when you had that encounter with that acquaintance, as you put it, who was considering having an abortion?
It was before the reversion. It was, but it was close to it.
You were really coming at this topic of abortion more of like from your personal, your stance, your kind of more, like your logic of it all. It just didn't make sense to you, rather than from like a religious inspiration.
Right. Yeah. So while I'm religious now, it didn't start with that. No.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So later, once you got into your faith, you started making those connections with, duh, like we should be against this.
Right. exactly.
All right. So you already got a little bit into the background and history of the walk. This coming January will be the 18th annual.
Can you believe it?
Right? That's 18 years. And you've been kind of at the head of it all since then, correct? You and your co-founder. So I
Yeah.
imagine you have numerous stories of experiences during these walks, and I would love for you to share some of those stories. Any particular stories or experiences that come to mind when you look back at the last 17, 18 years?
Well, I remember very distinctly and clearly the first one. The first one was probably the most intense, I would say. That's a good word to use. What happened with the first one, because when we started to plan for the first one, we thought it would be like the marriage rally that we had done the year before, like, maybe a few hundred people. And we were hoping for that. I work at Ignatius Press, so and I work in marketing, so I knew how to market things, and so I definitely was putting it out there and everything. But what really helped us, and this is kind of comical and ironic, but what really put us on the map and made it so intense and so large that first year was Gavin Newsom again and the city of San Francisco, because they came out so hard against us and vehemently opposed us. And they even had a city proclamation against us, saying they made January 22nd the pro-abortion day in San Francisco. And I mean, they threatened us. They did everything in their power to make it not happen that first year. And because they did that, because they gave us so much media, I think that's why we were so successful. People heard about it. They said, hey, wait a minute, look at what the city's saying and doing and what they're trying to do. And because that first year, when we finally got to the rally and everything, we had about 7,500 people, and which was way larger than what we were expecting. But I remember that first year clearly because when we started, because the police were there, because Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris, they all had a rally against us just down the street from us. And they got about 3,000 people at their rally. And they came down, the 3,000 people with Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris, they came down and they lined the streets where we were going to be walking. And when we took this turn coming out of Justin Herman Plaza, on Embarcadero to do our walk, it was literally it was a deafening sound of evil. I mean, I say that thinking that how that sounds, but it was so clear, the good versus evil. I mean, they were throwing eggs, they were nude, they were screaming, they were the blasphemies they shouted at us. Even the kids, that in our group, they were just it was so horrible. And so that first year, we realized there is definitely a fight of good versus evil out there. And this was so clearly present that first year that even the other side noticed it. They never came out against us again officially. They said it looked so bad for their side that they never organized against us. Now, different groups came out to protest against us, but they never had a Planned Parenthood Now, all those, because they were all there that first year. And but they saw clearly how it was backfiring what they were doing, and they never organized against us like that again. So that's one story. I mean, in terms of stories about people's who have had conversions from it, well, one of my favorite stories is David Daleiden. Of course, you know who that is, right? David Daleiden. He's the one that is now in federal court because he went undercover for Planned Parenthood. And he's got his start in doing that from coming to the walk. He came because he lived in Sacramento, and he came to the walk and he listened to some of our speakers, and he saw the organization, he saw the people, and he was so motivated to do something in the pro-life movement that he even said that the walk had a major influence on it, because he was one of our speakers later. And he said that the walk was one of the major influences in, in promoting that idea to go in undercover and try to expose Planned Parenthood. So that was that's something that we can hold on to.
Yeah.
Then other things, like one time, one of our volunteers, she was leading up the relief vans, and she said she saw this woman coming toward her, and the woman comes up, and apparently she looked kind of hardened, and so she was kind of afraid, like what's going to happen. But the woman said, for years I've been coming here to be against you. This is the first year that I'm standing with you. So
Wow.
quite apparently something switched in her mind, and then another one of my favorite stories, I've got so many, so I won't bore you too much, but one of them is I got an email one time about maybe 2-3 years ago from a woman whose husband is in jail. I don't know what for, but he's just here in the North Bay somewhere. I can't remember exactly the city. And he, for years, I didn't know this until about 3 years ago, but he would organize the prisoners every time a walk for life, that they had a little mini walk for life to walk with us in prison. Like
Wow.
they did groups of guys, and they would, because they had limited how many people could be in a group. And so they would have different groups, and they would walk at the same time that we were walking, and they would have signs, and they would be praying, or they would be doing, but they would be doing that in union with us out here. And
Wow.
I thought that was pretty powerful.
That is.
And then one last one.
For it.
One year I was asked to give a talk in the East Bay. I think it was at a parish, or I forget what the group was, but I was asked to give a talk on the Walk for Life. And before my talk, or after, I don't know, one of the talks was a group of high school students, and their job was to give a talk on what the Walk for Life meant to them. That was so powerful to me, because it showed me that just by having these young adults, these young people come to the walk, they get so motivated about life. These kids went back to their schools and started pro-life clubs. They would write their English essays on the pro-life movement. They would, and all of that because they were so moved by what they saw at the Walk for Life, and hearing the speakers, and just being with their peers, and it strengthened them to speak out. So that was very, very moving for me, and that made me realize that we got to keep going. We got to keep, because sometimes you work so hard. We're all volunteers, none of us get paid. We're doing this on top of full-time jobs. And sometimes you feel like, is this really doing any good? And then you hear things like that, and it's doing good. So, and then
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. Sorry.
No. Those are such powerful stories. And, especially the story about the prisoners, that really moves me. And,
yeah,
it's a good reminder for anybody listening, whether you're in Oregon or in the West Coast, or maybe you're on somewhere else, right? And you're not able to make the March for Life or the Walk for Life. There's still ways that symbolically and in solidarity you can participate in this movement, and that's really moving. And then of course the story about the youth, and that just makes me more inspired to really specifically invite our youth in our community to come, right? Because so often youth struggle with their faith and trying to connect it with their lived experiences, right? They kind of just make it seem like it's something you do on the weekends, on Sundays or whatever. But when you go on these types of rallies and walks, that's where you put your faith into action, right?
That's
And
right.
what a wonderful opportunity it would be for youth to embody their faith in that way, as youth in the past have. So if there's any youth listening, come to the walk.
Absolutely.
Literally.
And we're very proud of the fact that the majority of our people that come to the walk are the youth, and we get colleges and universities and pro-life groups from all over. Literally all over. So we definitely encourage the youth to come, because they will they'll feel empowered. And because sometimes you don't want to speak up because of the cancel culture and all of that, but you'll see people who really, really live their faith. So yeah. come to
So
you.
yes. So let's fast forward to today. And I know the walk has probably, adapted and transformed in many different ways. I read somewhere that this last year's walk, that was one of the first time you didn't encounter any kind of protest, and mainly probably because of the pandemic. But just curious, I know we still have a few months out from the next walk in January 2022. But for people who are listening and haven't gone to this walk, what can they expect from this walk, this upcoming walk in January 2022?
Well, that's still up in the air because as you know, everything's changing weekly. But and I want to say that I'm gonna go back to this year because we've always been the second largest pro-life event in the country, and this year we were the number one because March for Life canceled, and so we're one of the only ones that had in-person Walk for Life this year, and it was, to me, was one of my favorite because it was more than just a walk for life. It was walk for freedom,
Right.
walk for unity, walk for religious anyway. So for this coming year, we're going under the premise that we're going to be back to our usual, having the stage and the sound system and the info fair and all the other events that usually go with it. So that's what we're planning on. That's what we are working toward. But if for whatever reason the city decides to cancel our permits, which basically all that means if they don't give us a permit is that we can't have the stage, we can't have the tents for info fair, we can't have the porta potties. But then we'll do what we did again this year. What we did this year is we set up a sound system in the back of a pickup truck, and we had our speakers speak from the bed of the pickup truck, and then we went ahead because the police were definitely there. They were very good. They made sure everything was safe and the roads were closed off for us, etc. So then we'll do that. So as of right now, we're planning on the big full event.
You
But
got a plan B.
either way, we're going to have it. So I would
Yeah.
encourage everyone to plan on it, to plan on coming, because whether it be the format of their first 16 years or the format of the 17th year, 18th year will happen.
Exactly. Yeah, I was talking to some people from our community who were hesitant to, pay for everything, and it turns out that everything's canceled. I was like, I don't know if it will be canceled. I mean, it happened last year, and we were in the heart of the pandemic, and of course, it's getting pretty bad in some places now. But it sounds like you all are, obviously trying to do it the safe way, and working under the guidance and protocols of the city government. So yeah, I'm happy that you've emphasized the fact that it's going to happen one way or the other.
It's going to
With your
happen. It's
plan
going to
A,
happen.
plan
Even
B,
if it,
plan C.
yeah, even if it's just 100 people, what that's what we did this year. We didn't advertise at all because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't want the protesters coming. So we did zero in terms of advertising. All we did was put it up on our website saying that we're going to meet there, etc. So, if necessary, we'll do that same thing again. So yes, please plan on coming. It is definitely going to happen one way or the other.
Awesome. Anything else? Any other words of encouragement that you would share with people who are hesitant to come, whether they're hesitant because of COVID or whether they're hesitant because they've never done something like this, or maybe I'm surprised, but sometimes there's people, and even in our own faith communities, that are hesitant to come to this kind of walk, right? Because that what it stands for. So any other words of encouragement that you would share for people who are kind of on the border?
Well, the people that are on the border, I mean, I would say that you've got to, at some point, you've got to stand up for what you believe in. There's really nothing else I can say. I do encourage you to come if for no other reason than to meet other people, like-minded people. I can't even begin to tell you how many marriages have happened from the Walk for Life. I feel like I have so many children because there are just dozens and dozens of kids out there from people who got married from meeting at the walk. So if you come for no other reason than just the fellowship and to meet people, like-minded people, I very much encourage you to come. Nothing happened this year. There was no outbreaks. There was no protesters. It was everybody enjoying each other and getting strength from each other, standing up for life, carrying our signs, saying, abortion hurts women. And, just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, yeah.
Just do it.
And something else that I've heard from people is like, well, why should I go to this kind of walk when I can work with the mom in need in my own backyard? Like, why do I have to go to this huge thing? It's like going to a vacation and going to a tourist town. Like, in my mind, this is different, and they're both important, right? Working one-on-one with people, and also participating in these larger movements. How do you make that distinction in terms of like they're both good? It's not like one way or the other, one's better than the other.
Oh, no, from year one, we have every single year we have an info fair. Of course, we didn't have it this year because the city wouldn't let us, and because our goal is to have in the info fair, we invite all kinds of groups that are working with, crisis pregnancies and in the pro-life movement. And we encourage everybody to go and sign up to volunteer. That's one of the main things that we want to do is get people involved. When you come to the walk, it's a beautiful and a great day and you'll feel energized and good, but you can't just go back and not do anything further. And that's why we have the info fair. I mean, we have around 50 different groups that come and they hand out their information. They sign you up for volunteer work. And we encourage very much, even from the stage, for people to stay involved, either with crisis pregnancy centers or even in politics. Make sure to write your representatives, make sure that you keep a track of what the bills are that are coming up so you can fight against them or for them, depending on what the bill is. And so no, definitely it's not one or the other, it's both. You have to do both. And if you're going to go to the crisis pregnancy center, you're going to be much more motivated and much more excited to do that if you come to the walk and see that you're not alone.
Awesome, Eva. Well, what else, or where can listeners go to stay up to date? Yeah, stay informed about the latest plans for the walk.
They can go to walkforlifewc.com, and as we get information, we'll be posting it there. Right now, if you go there, you'll see the date, you'll see general information. You also see what we have so far as speakers. We have, well, I guess I really don't want to say yet because, Lila Rose for sure, Lila Rose. And most people, I think, who are in the pro-life movement know who Lila Rose is. So as we're very excited to have her, and we're working on a couple of other good ones. But yeah, go to the website walkforlifewc.com. From there, there's a contact tab, so you can either email or phone call. You can to reach out to us if you want to help in any way. We would always love the help of people to hand out flyers and to contact their churches to make sure it's being talked about from the pulpit. Things like that. There's a lot of things that individuals can do to help us make the walk even better.
Awesome. Any final words to our listeners or anybody who is interested in this?
Yeah, please come. And I don't think you will ever regret it. And I have never heard anybody regret it. Most people definitely say that it did something to change their lives, to see the energy and the power of the pro-life movement in action.
Awesome, Eva. Well, thank you.
Okay.